Hey, welcome back to the big show. My name, as always, is Matteo, and coming to you live, surprisingly, right here on YouTube right now. And if you're listening to this, you can go check it out on YouTube. It's me, Matt from Austin, coming at you live. And from always, Planet Houston, my brother Ken. Say hello, Ken.
Live long and prosper.
There we go. Well, we are back from the hiatus here, episode 10 of Discovery. Pretty exciting episode. Lots of crazy stuff happened. What do you think, Ken?
It is kind of amazing. You know, we've talked about how the difference between episodic and serial television, and this is the kind of thing that would have been wrapped up in an episode previously. Mm-hmm. You go to the mirror universe. By the time the episode is over, you're back, and everything's back to normal. But we have basically gone to the mirror universe and just gotten our bearings, and we don't know what's going on. This could last another episode.
Right. It's a crazy.
It could be the rest of the season.
It's a crazy thing. Who knows what will happen, but we shall see. A little cliffhanger there at the end of this episode, which an episode directed by some guy named J. Frakes. Jonathan Frakes. This guy coming out of nowhere. He's like a stranger to Trek, and suddenly he magically appears, able to direct things. It's crazy. Commander Riker coming to you, directing episode of the show. I thought it was a really great episode. Well directed, I mean. I think it's funny because, so I don't think it was his first episode, but we have always, for many years, you and I have discussed what a great episode Cause and Effect is. Mm-hmm. And how, though we are seeing moments over and over again, we're not always seeing them from the same angle, or even sometimes we're seeing it from a slightly tilted angle, or something's a little bit askew. Jay definitely has a lot of fun going back and showing us the same thing over and over again, but definitely not the same way. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So this episode is called Despite Yourself. Interesting title for this one, I thought. Normally I'd go into a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, but hey, not a lot has happened. And, let's just jump right into this one, because I got a lot of notes all over this one because a lot of stuff has happened. So let's get to it. Previously on season 1. And it's just basically like the first half of this season. Chapter 1 is what they're officially calling it. We just get everything. It's a nice, quick little refresher like, oh, yeah, that happened. Oh, yeah, that happened. Okay. Oh, and Stamets is like glassy-eyed and has fallen out of the big spore drive. And boy, now we're in a giant junkyard and we don't know where we are. Pick up into this episode. Here we are, the junkyard from the end of episode 9. Saru's having trouble, obviously finding his way in this new universe, although yet we don't know it's a new universe. He says, we are where we're supposed to be based on the distance from Galactic Center, but then nothing else in this universe is where it appears to be. It goes off. And then Tyler walks in. Is this a coincidence? I don't know. Or do you think his third angle is going off because he's in a different universe, or that he's or because of Tyler? Which one is it, do you think?
It's unclear. We see later on that Stamets seems to be referring to Tyler as, the enemy or the adversary, or so. Now, on the one hand, there's the theory that he's Kor, the Klingon.
Uh-huh.
And so...
No, Voke.
Voke. So, it's possible that they're hinting at that once again. I mean, something is clearly up with this guy.
Right.
So, it's possible these kinds of things refer to that. It's also possible that it's all misdirection. They know what they're hinting at. And it's designed to set up a reversal that will make us all amazed. So it's hard to say.
Very true.
Because the minute you make a speculation, you have to second guess yourself and go, well, maybe that's what they want me to think.
Well, and two, it could just be compounded. You know, it could be we're in a different universe. Things are definitely different. And then here's this crazy Tyler guy, and we don't even know what the sitch is on him. All right. So moving on, the Vulcans have arrived now. You think, oh, good, Vulcans, they're nice guys. And we're just going to go ahead and hail them. And as we hail them, we get some nice, you know, Star Trek-y sound effects. And that's really exciting. And then all of a sudden, the Vulcans power up their weapons and throw their shields up. So the Discovery, now thinking, oh no, the Vulcans are going to shoot at us, but instead thinking there must be some crazy Klingons around, decide they're going to do the same thing. Fire.
I think Lorca was not relying on the Vulcans being the Vulcans.
I don't know. I don't know yet if he's at the point where he's suspicious of everything in this new place. In fact, don't they even say something like, yeah, there must be Klingons in the area or something. Somebody says that.
It's Burnham. And I think at the very beginning there, Burnham just could not imagine that Vulcans would fire on them.
No matter what.
Yeah, so like she basically, pulled something out of her hat to go, well, there must be something we don't know. And they're going to shoot at something we don't see. Because they certainly wouldn't shoot at us. That would be absurd.
Why would they ever?
Yeah, but I felt like Lorca was like, nah, never mind. I'm going to do this other thing. And basically, of course, what he's doing is he's following that protocol that, what's her name? Not Valeris, the other Vulcan. It's the S. Kirstie Alley. When she advises
Saavik.
Kirk. Yeah, Saavik, there you go. When she says, when two ships haven't properly identified one another, the protocol is raise shields. And that's what he does. So I think he realizes the situation's a little bit hinky, a little bit weird. Things are not the way they should be. And so he's like, I'm going to go to that protocol right away.
Well, I know as far as both of us are concerned that Saavik and Valeris are the same person anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you get the name wrong. So, back at it then, we get... Sorry, every time I go to switch the camera, it moves the... So, then all of a sudden, now the starship's name is Cooper, and it comes out of nowhere for the assist. But Lorca is now suspicious because he's like, isn't this supposed to be in the retrofit? Isn't that supposed to be getting refitted? What's happening? So now we find out from the captain of the Connor that the Vulcans were rebels. Now, are they saying that they were Vulcan rebels or that the Vulcans are being called rebels? Which one is it? We don't know. Things are confusing because we have seen at this point, of course, already Vulcan rebels. So...
Those logic
anyway. Exactly. We cut now down to engineering where the spore drive is, and we find Stamets is down for the count still. He's completely unconscious. He's kind of barely alive, but is everything spiking in his brain. And Tilly just calls the spore drive inoperable. So there's no way we're getting out of this right away. Then Saru notices that the quantum signature is off. It's not the same as everything else in our universe. Lorca puts it all together, and he says, oh, we must be not in our universe. Credits! So, while we're in the opening credit segment of our thing, I just want to talk about, again, how the special effects are still amazing. It's like the best looking show on TV, I swear it. But it's so also sad because everything is happening so fast in this episode. Like a moment to just really look and gaze upon how awesome the special effects are. I mean, that's good. It means they're telling the story. But I swear any scene of this could be a wallpaper on the PC,
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Okay. And then, of course, we get that awesome Jonathan Frakes credit. Yay, Jay Frakes. Now we're back to it. Lorca tells Saru and Burnham about about the possibilities that he and Stamets were coming up with as far as the parallel universes. They were going to explore more after they had gotten back in and gotten the retrofit, and Stamets had given everything up finally. Burnham then also reminds us the important dangling thing from last season of the finding the cloaked Klingon ships, and how important it is that we get that information back to the Federation that we know. Burnham suggests also that they look through the drive logs and see if they can find the coordinates home. But Lorca, ever the strategist, decides that we are now that the best idea is to learn how to survive here, and then once we figure that out, home. We see wide-eyed Stamets, right? He's gibbering on and on about the palace. What's the palace? Ooh, I just had a thought. This is stupid that I didn't think of this before. I just had a thought. So we know we have an emperor, a faceless emperor in this world. Could it be that palace? Maybe is there a future mission where they have to go to the emperor's palace? Go away. Okay, so Tilly now is trying to drag Stamets, out of it. She's trying to say, what was the humidity that I'm supposed to keep the spores at? I don't remember. But then all of a sudden Stamets gets up and he starts walking him around. Culber tries to come over and get him back in his seat, but Stamets just pushes him and then walks back over and lays back in bed. So they decide they're going to have to put a force field around it for the safety of not only everybody around it, but for Stamets himself. Lorca then takes Culber off the case, says that he lacks the objectivity, and of course he isn't liking it. In space now, we see Tyler in one of those little bug ships, right? And he's trying to find the central data cord, or one of the Klingon ships that's blown up and all over the junkyard here. But then his PTSD sits in. Dun, 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 dun. He finds a Vulcan and Andorian bodies inside the Klingon ships. And he's sweating. But he manages to pull the core out of the computer core undamaged. I also liked his little hollow controller that he had going on there. I thought that was pretty cool. So here we go. We got this guy. We have a character that we can't even really trust because he's he's got the PTSD going on. And obviously we see much more about what's happening inside this guy than anybody else does. This continues to happen through this episode, of course. What are we going to do about this guy? Okay. So as all of this is going on, Burnham is sort of talking him through the through the commands, telling him what to do, and Lorca, you can kind of see, is sort of watching off to the side, all right, something's going on here, not sure what it is, but afterwards he confronts Burnham and he says, I need to know if I can rely on my crew. Can I, Burnham? Of course, Burnham yeah, of course, sir. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You got nothing to worry about. And it's funny because this doesn't feel like this is all about Tyler either, right?
Right.
It's also a little bit about Burnham.
Yeah, I think there's a big Burnham piece there. Because she's covering for him. He can tell that he's having some difficulty and she's helping him out. So she apparently knows what's going on, but hasn't brought him up to speed, Lorca. So then when he goes over there and says, can I count on my people? Part of what he's saying is, are you going to tell me when stuff's not right? And, maybe someone shouldn't be on the job And of course, then she says yes, which means, of course, that at some point Tyler has to be, you'll cover for me, right? And she'll be like, yeah, I'll totally cover for you, which is the giant Chekhov's gun. He's going to fail and she's going to have to be like, oh, sorry, Lorca.
Yeah, exactly. Also thought too that this is a little similar to what just happened down in down in the med bay, you know, with him taking old Hugh off of the case with Stamets. This is also sort of that same little thing going on here where, you know, Burnham obviously knows something and trust you two working together because this doesn't feel right. You know, it's that kind of thing I feel like's going on.
Right.
Also, the other note I wrote here is that, boy, do they need a ship's counselor, huh?
Seriously.
So after this, Tyler comes in and confronts Laurel in her cell, and he's like, "What did you do to me?" And she's like,
I felt like this was a flashback.
You think? I don't think this is a flashback. I think this is happening now. I think he like got out of the little crawler, came up, and was like, "Hey, I'm having more problems, and you are doing this to me." You know. All right. So anyway, so then he's like, "What did you do to me?" And she's like, "Oh, you know what we did." And I'm like, "Ugh, that's gross." So then Laurel tells him, "Hey, open up the cell and I will tell you everything you want to know." And he does. And I hit the pause anymore. I'm like, what is he doing? This isn't going to end well. So that's as much as I got for this week's show because I couldn't get it. All right. I had to keep watching because it was not a good time. Anyway, so but hey, it comes back and it's Icky. She like comes on to him, is like, you know, trying to get all sexy on him and on her neck. And then she says in Klingon, "Whom do you seek?" And suddenly Ken's right. It's the Manchurian Candidate all over again. But then suddenly the screen goes black, and then Tyler finds himself like across the room with a phaser in his hand. But apparently the programming didn't work. It didn't stick. And now he puts the gun to her head, and then they almost kiss, and now we're all just as confused as he is, and now we go to commercial. So this is actually then where the question I wrote at the time is Manchurian Candidate, or is Vogue sliced in there somehow? And guess what? I was right. Apparently, Vogue seems to be somehow spliced in. We're not there yet, but that's what it seems like is happening. And that's just some kind of crazy genetic thing going on there. Back at it. Burnham sits with Tyler. There's some nice character bits here. They're like talking in the lunchroom like they have so many times before. Some nice character bits here. Tyler trying to stay on top of what's going on. You know, he's like, I can't tell anybody about my PTSD until we get home because they're going to take me off duty and put me in a cell or something. But he promises to tell Burnham that if things start to go bad, that he'll tell her. Which, you know, that's like trusting a drug addict to tell you, hey, next time I do drugs, I promise I'm going to tell you that everything is bad. So clearly this isn't a good idea either.
Oh, no, it's horrible.
But Burnham goes, yeah.
Compounding the horrible.
Truth. In engineering, Burnham and Tilly, they pry open the core and they find like a Vulcan memory cube inside of it, or memory diamond or something. Anyway, so she decides she's going to plug it into the universal interface. And then they discuss with Stamets. Oh, no, then they talk about Stamets, not with Stamets. Which is, again, some dialogue happens. Nothing really new, I didn't feel like. They were just expressing their sadness for Stamets. And then we see what the core has to tell us. This is a parallel universe not governed by the Federation, but the vicious Terran Empire. Dun, dun, dun. A return of the Terran Empire. The Terrans are the opposite of the Federation. Xenophobic, run by a faceless emperor. Maybe it's Lorca, maybe it's Burnham. But we later find out that it's neither. Or maybe it is them, and that's where they disappear to. Who knows? All the non-human species we find are fighting for their freedom against those dang Terrans. So help me with the lore here. This is pretty much equitable with what we know of the mirror universe, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's an episode in Enterprise. There's a two-parter, but there's an encounter with in Enterprise. Then we get the one episode from the original series.
Right.
We get a lot of stuff in DS9. They really enjoy the mirror universe, but it's all taking place in the future. You know, in DS9 time, they don't talk about the past very much. So it's really hard to say.
Well, we know that there's an alternate Spock, right? In the Mirror episode.
He has a goatee.
He has a goatee. That's how we know he's the evil one.
That's right.
But that makes me wonder then if how is a Vulcan then on a Terran ship in the Empire? The Terran Empire.
And you know, if you recall, he had another Vulcan bodyguard in that one. So apparently there are some Vulcans.
Things have changed over the 10 years in the Mirror universe between Discovery and Enterprise.
So they do mention that the Vulcans are rebelling, right? So there is a suggestion that...
Oh, that's true.
You know, that they're supposed to be part, either as a conquered part or, you know, a subjugated part, an enslaved part, something like that. And so Spock must have been, you know, one of the ones who stayed loyal, or, you know,
that's fair. And then the Cooper returns, and we have to answer the hail. But how do we answer the hail? We don't even know who the captain is. So luckily, digging through the memory core as she does, Burnham finds out that it is none other than Tilly is the captain of the Discovery in the Mirror universe.
Which, of course, hints at that reference that Stamets made.
Is what?
So he had, like, come out of the chamber all wacky and referred to her as Captain. Captain, what are you doing here?
Oh, that's right.
She was like, what? And he was like, oh, it's nothing, you know. And then he gets mad. And it was the end of cool, friendly Stamets and the return of grumpy Stamets.
That is right. Interesting. Love it when they do stuff like that. Okay. So Lorca then turns the chair toward Tilly and says, Cadet, looks like you're taking this one. Which is not only amazing, but hilarious. I love the whole scene with her. Like, what the heck? Hell, hold your horses. It's like, good job. Good one. And then we also get the amazing moment here where she hands the communicator over to her engineer, who turns out to be Lorca with a great Scottish accent. That was amazing. Callback to our own Scott, Montgomery Scott, definitely. Then Lorca demands that we now get the crew up and running on the current interviews. You know, they're going to get new iconography. Everybody's going to learn their new parts, who they are, including Tilly. And now it's time for a montage. We find out that she's like the slayer of Scientology or something. I don't know. I didn't quite hear it. We get new iconography put up along the walls and on the computers. We also find out that she's the Witch of Wernmeyer. Then we also find out that another name for her is Captain Killy. Amazing. And Lorca officially announces them the ISS Discovery commercial. So this now explains also the picture that we had of Jason Isaacs when he was in the captain's chair, and in the background was the plaque for the ISS. You remember that? I talked about that, so now we got that.
You know, it's funny that they would have the same names, right? Because Discovery So I read a review that contrasted the mirror universe, whose principal virtue or principal, we'll call it a virtue, but it's the virtue of their world, is brutality. Brutality is how you get ahead. Brutality is how you win in that society. Whereas in traditional Star Trek, it's more curiosity. And so it would seem odd that you would have a ship named Discovery in their universe instead of saying, well, we got the exact same ship, but it's named Avenger.
Yeah. And all I'd have to say is, like, there's a ship with similar to Discovery with his markings and everything, and yet that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That's funny. Also, I think it's interesting about this, especially when it comes to Mirror Mirror specifically. I'm unfamiliar with many of the other Mirror Universe episodes, although they did just do a cartoon or a comic book series. I mean, with the Next Generation in the Mirror Universe,
which is interesting because they've never done Mirror Universe.
Exactly, that's what was amazing about it. So as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I'm gonna have to start collecting this. I haven't finished the last episode or the last issue yet. But what's fun about it is that it's basically so of course, as we know from
DS9.
Anyway, no, I think maybe, I don't know. Anyway, things aren't going well for the Terrans against in the war. So there aren't a lot of ships. So Picard's still on the Stargazer, and like his ship's falling apart. But then he hears rumors that they're building a brand new, what's the Enterprise D? What kind of ship?
The Galaxy class.
Yes, they're building a new Galaxy class, thing, and it's going to be the ship that's going to go through and take out all of the, and really is going to like win the war for them. And so, of course, it's going to be helmed by Captain Jellicoe. So, also on his ship is Barclay and Yar, right? Well, he finds out that there's a secret coup coming up from Yar. She's going to kill Picard and then try and take over the Stargazer. But of all people to help him out, it turns out that it's Ensign Barclay who takes out Yar. And then, and anyway, so he gets this group together, and of course, Geordi is working on the Galaxy class ship, and he feels like, there's one other person I need, and so he goes into this bar, and he basically gets into this fistfight brawl with Riker, and then Riker, agrees to become his first, so that he can go out there and kill everybody else, and blah blah blah. Anyway, it's a whole great storyline, and so they end up taking the D from Jellicoe, and Wesley's there, and so is Dr. Crusher. It's a great. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I haven't finished it yet, but it's a good time. But all of this to say is that usually in these episodes we find ourselves exploring more the other galaxy, and of course at first I didn't realize this was only going to be it was going to be more than one episode. So I guess we'll get more of that in the next episode. But sort of like looking around and who are these people? We get a little of that with Captain Tilly, and finding out that Lorca and Burnham are not in this universe per se. But I feel like a lot more of these episodes are them exploring the other side of it and seeing what it's all about. And yet in this, just the ship, the ship crew itself figuring it all out and not actually seeing the other side of it yet. We haven't seen our goateed bad guy for instance. So back to it. We're in Lorca's ready room. Burnham has found that in this universe she is presumed dead, and Lorca is wanted for murder. Lorca attempted a coup against the Faceless Emperor. Of course, he did. Of course, that sounds like Lorca. But Burnham tried to stop him, and so Burnham is sent with the Shinzao to meet up with Lorca's old ship, and then Burnham is in a shuttlecraft, and they think that she's dead, and so Lorca's wanted for murder, and it's a whole big thing. Lorca also takes this moment to sort of wax philosophic about destiny. And whether or not Burnham, was Burnham always meant to be something better, more than, just somebody who started a war. Lorca then suggests a new plan, which which Saru calls suicidal. They are not the first ship to arrive here. We find out it's the Defiant. Dun, da, da. And this is an Enterprise reference, right?
Yeah. So in the two-parter, you have the mirror unit, which is a great. If you haven't seen it, it's so when you normally you watch Enterprise and they've got that. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
From here to there, and instead, what you get is this different beginning. Bum, 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 bum. And instead of seeing, like the astronauts walking on the moon or, breaking the sound barrier, doing the things that they do in that when they ultimately get to hitting the warp. Instead, it's like World War II footage. And then you're like watching footage of, more modern wars, and then you're in other wars, and it's just war footage. Bum, bum, bum.
Love it.
And so instantly there's no reference to like the regular Star Trek people. It's a different show. And you're following the mirror Captain Archer, and he gets some word that, there's this ship from the future, and it's the Defiant, and he's going to go and get it because the guy who has that, well, he would be in such a huge advantage in the Empire.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about. It's about him getting this ship from the future.
Love it.
It's fantastic.
So then Lorca suggests a new plan. They're going to go find out as much information as they can about the Defiant, because apparently the Defiant came over in like a... what did they call it? Like it's right on the tip of my tongue. Temporal bubble. That's what it was. Temporal was the word I was having trouble with. Anyway, so the way to do this, of course, is it's just a real simple and easy plan. All they have to do is sneak aboard the Shenzhou, pretend that they're playing them Terran selves, and then find out all that information. I mean, what could go wrong? It sounds like the simplest plan in the history of the world. Why would they not? It's fine. So Lorca decides also to make Tyler a part of what would be Burnham's personal guard in this time period. Although we didn't hear anything about Tyler. We don't know anything about Tyler in this other universe. Like, he could have been on the ship. They got lucky. Hopefully they checked it out. But so Tyler then goes to Doc Culber and says, hey, can you just like triple check me, make sure that everything is good with my well, it's not PSP. I mean, just make sure that everything's fine. And Culber's like, well, we scanned you. Have you been having any problems? And Tyler's like, no problems. I'm fine. I'm completely emotionally A-okay. But on the off chance that I wasn't okay, could you just give me another test, please? And Culber's like, well, we've already scanned you already. We even gave you the Manchurian test. I'm like, they just called it out. I loved it. They're like, yep, Manchurian test. It's a thing. So Tyler lies down, saying, we're going to get you in ship shape. So he lies down in the CAT scan booth as all of a sudden Stamets yells, stay out of the palace. So Hugh then goes over to Stamets, and I paused again because they're setting up some kind of weird tension here, it felt like. You got Tyler underneath this thing, so that he could start going into crazy PTSD. Stamets could be over here and start yelling about the palace again and go nuts. Like, I didn't know what was about to happen here. I just thought it was something bad, so I paused it again. Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine, because Culber just kisses him and everything's good. And then Stamets' eyes clear for a second, no longer cloudy. And he looks at him and says, be careful. The enemy is here.
There you go.
So I paused again because now I really don't like this again all of a sudden. I'm like, who are we talking about? Are we talking about Tyler? What are we talking about? Are we just talking about being in this mirror universe? Okay. Well, anyway, nothing happens in this scene, luckily.
The other possibility is that Stamets could be in touch with his multiple selves, right? So he could be the Jekyll and Hyde. He could be, good True. Stamets from our world and simultaneously bad Stamets from the mirror universe.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. So breath of fresh air, nothing happens here. We cut to Tilly, who says that she is about 60% excited or 40% terrified.
No, it's 60% terrified.
Yes, and 40% excited, or maybe it's 70%. Anyway, we then cut to Tilly, who's got, now you can see her hair long. Thought she looked really good that way, very like, Viking or something, very like imperial. Yep. Burnham then kind of helps Tilly get into character by telling her that the Terrans live in fear. They're in fear of the next knife in their back. Their strength is a facade because they're living in fear the whole time, while your strength comes from an entire crew behind you that believes in you. And then Lorca arrives. He says, this is going to work. Let's do this. And she's like, great. Let's not keep these assholes waiting.
Too much?
Was that too much? Not in this universe. Decency is out the window. So then Tilly calls over to the Shenzhou, and the captain of this ship, whose name is also Cooper, so that was a little confusing. I don't know why they had to do that, but anyway, was Burnham's ops officer and died at the big battle at the beginning of the season. Kind of a little bit freaked out by seeing one of her formerly dead, crew members alive. But the show goes on, and Burnham brings out Lorca for Cooper to see. She demands he bring her ship to her at once. Cooper kind of hems and haws for a second, and then Tilly says, if you responded that way to me, then I would cut out your tongue and lick my boot with it. Okay. So Cooper cooperates. Back to the med bay, everything is fine. Culber may have just found something, because if he had ever had any kind of neurological therapy, he says there are kind of scars everywhere. Looks like your limbs may have been shortened, and that while there are no personality engrams found initially, it seems like a new personality might have been, laid on top of it that could transform you.
Yeah,
I know, right? That could transform you both mentally and physically. So Tyler's like, okay, cool, we'll get that checked out when I come back. But then Culber stops him, which, again, no big deal, except then Tyler then snaps his neck.
Yikes!
Open. And then they went to commercial. And then I said, what just happened? This is crazy. And then in another funny moment, the CBS app then skipped the commercial for me.
Yeah.
The one time that I actually needed it.
You needed to find out about some Soper insurance.
Yes, exactly. Come on, scrub what just happened from my brain. This isn't cool.
So we've lost our second, kind of not counting anybody on the Shinzu, right? Not counting Captain Giorgio.
Right. Yeah.
So we lost the first security officer, who looked like a very competent, serious person. Now we've lost the doctor. So this very much is a world in which anybody could die.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely true. So I was reading an article that or a review of this that was sort of complaining about just this new trend in TV, Walking Dead and Game of Thrones. Now it's suddenly like, oh, now we're just watching for these big shock values to see who's going to die next. And, I've been watching Walking Dead for a long time. And the latest death that they had, I thought was really annoying because I think that character had a lot of room for growth. So it was stupid that they did it. And then also he was like, if you think about it too, like when we were presented with this new discovery of a new diverse, group of people from different, backgrounds and different sexual orientations and blah, blah, blah. And then we've killed the Asian captain. We've killed the Spanish descent, security officer. Right. And now we've killed the doctor, who is not only an African-American guy, but also a homeless. It's like, oh, well, we're just cutting out all the diversity out of this episode or out of this show.
I was like, there's the reverse argument. There's the reverse argument, right? So this originally comes from football, and I forget who said it, but they said, we'll know that we have real equality not when they hired the first black coach, but when they fired the first black coach.
Right.
So in that sense, if you're going to have a diverse cast, then it's going to be a diverse cast of deaths as well.
That's true. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, because we still have, we have our Ash, and even though he's a little bit crazy, he's of his particular region of the world, and we have Michael Burnham, who's black, and then so it's like we still have the diversity is still there,
right?
So obviously, yes, the more diversity we have, the more diversity people are going to get killed,
and of course, over the long term, we're gonna have another Doctor at some point.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe they won't die. We'll have to see. I mean, Bones never did, so we'll see what happens on the show. So, I wrote back to it, but I've given up. The Shenzhou appears. Shenzhou appears. They beam over after an awesome speech by Lorca, where he's like, Ash says he's sorry for being late. He's like, no, it's okay. At this point along, decency is dead, right? We got to go in. We got to prove that we are these evil sides of ourselves that we don't like. So they beam over, and immediately Burnham's like, nope, I'm going to personally escort Lorca to the brig because I don't want anybody trying to take the huge bounty on this guy. And we find agonizer booths.
Oh yeah,
which I thought were awful looking.
Your agonizer, please.
Let's get to it. Jeez. Which I'm sure is going to be a bad afternoon for him.
Oh.
In the turbo lift, Cooper explains that he was the one who came out on top after Burnham left, but only barely. The Emperor saw something in me, he says. He then attacks her out of nowhere, but smartly, she sees it coming. After all, why else would he be talking about this? And then the attack ends poorly for Cooper. That's a fun little fight. I like the way that they use like the area. They kick open that panel and all that stuff. It was really great. And then, but I just love how it ends with the psh, and Cooper just falling dead. And it's like, I'm back. How y'all doing? Welcome back. I'm here. Let's keep doing this. What's really cool, though, is that they give Burnham a moment where you can just tell by the look on her face that she did not enjoy any bit of that at all. So very happy. But the bridge applauds, long live Captain Burnham, long live Captain Burnham, long live the Empire. Now, this would have been a really cool shot to like just end this episode on. But we got to bring it a little bit more. We got to really like twist the knife a little bit. So they do. In her quarters, she finds Ash. Chance yet to gather the information on the Defiant, and everyone on the Shenzhou has been trying to curry favor with her, so she never gets a moment alone. And of course, she doesn't want to draw suspicion, right? Because it's her first day back. People might get suspicious. Ash swears that he is here and that no matter what's happened, he's going to protect her. Do you understand what I'm saying? He says. Now, I'm honestly, at this point, unsure if I even know what's going on in Ash's head at this point. Like, what is he talking about? Like, I don't even know if he understands what he's saying. I know that he's going to vehemently protect Burnham, but he's also got a lot of other stuff going on internally as well. What do you think about this little speech that he has here?
Well, I think one of the ways that he protected Burnham so far was by killing the Doctor. Because in his current state of mind, he thought, I gotta go, I gotta protect her, I can't be taken off this mission, I can't let him sideline me, for some whatever it is that they're discovering. I've got to be there. I got to be there, protect her. And if that means killing the Doctor, hey, I'm on board. I'm gonna break some necks right here on the med bay floor. So who knows what he's capable of?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he might be destined to like rule this new universe. Jeez. He's a crazy person. Anyway, so she moves closer to him and they get to start to embrace, and she says, I'm saying it back. And then there's some brown chicken, brown cow going on here all the way to the end of the show. And again, just to finish twisting that knife just a little bit more, we see Lorca and the Agonizer. And credits.
Oh, yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Whew. What a
it was
crazy
agonizing.
Episode was agonizing, exactly. Oh my goodness. I got some more thoughts here. I loaded up some stuff from some other reviews that I had read. I just have to bring them up slowly but surely. So I was reading an interview. It's on StarTrek.com. So if you want to, go ahead and look it up for yourself. It's really interesting with Mr. J. Frakes himself, who was saying that he really dug the cast and crew. He's like, they are already, halfway through a season where it took us almost 2 or 3 years as a cast to get to. They really enjoy hanging out with each other. He goes, when it was Anthony Rapp and I hanging out on the set, we were singing show tunes and having a good time, as I am wont to do, he says. He says that especially on these heavier days, it's better to not dwell in. He goes, I'm not one of those people who's like all method and tells you, he's like, we were cracking jokes up until the moment they said, roll them on the show. And he goes, I feel that they were the same way on this show, that the cast and crew are awesome and had a great time. He also said that he also helped develop, it wasn't in the script this way, but he helped develop that whole turbo lift sequence on the all thanks to Jake Frakes, another, fascinating, intriguing episode. He really digs the cast. He hopes he can come back next season and direct something else, because he had a really good time. Anything else you got to say about this episode? Anything we haven't hit yet?
I think, one of the things. So, I'm gonna just touch back on some of our Star Wars talk from the last episode. We did our little review of The Last Jedi, and one of the things they're doing
is also going to be up on YouTube.
One of the things that I think they're doing there is they're changing some of our understandings of things in the past. And, part of they're doing that is, they're saying, well, these heroic endings didn't end up quite as heroic as we thought they did. That there was a little more tragedy built into this world, and of course there's lots of tragedy from the beginning, right? So it's not all that surprising that people don't end up just in happy places, right? And I think, they're doing the same thing for us here in Discovery. So we are not getting the sense that the Star Trek Utopia was inevitable. Instead, we're getting the sense that, there was some bad stuff that had to be done to get us from here to there. These guys have to go into the mirror universe and be brutal in order to get the information to come back and get that information about the Klingon, cloaking devices to the Federation. And this, we are again looking at the dark side. So an enemy within, right? Where we're going to have to embrace, in a sense, our inner Lorca. And, so like there was a lot of discussion about, was Lorca too aggressive, too dark a character? Was he really a Star Trek, kind of a guy? And, I think clearly in the Discovery, scenario here, he is. He's the guy who realizes we've got to be, dark in order to maintain the light, which is an argument from, the enemy within. It's just that there was a much more utopian sense of the original series and where Roddenberry was running the show.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I've even read somewhere that the producers are saying that, like, hey, we got to get through the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. Like this,
right?
The Federation just didn't start off, as we've already seen from Enterprise. The Federation just didn't start off on the right foot and be like, hey, we know what we're doing. Let's do this, blah, blah, blah. So we have to see the dark to get to the light. Speaking of the dark and the light, another interesting thing I read in a review was the idea that when you start with characters who are already a little bit dark, like your Lorca, like your Burnham, who are already, dealing with things on a little bit different level than everyone else in your regular universe, that when you go then to the mirror universe, is there enough black and white, you know,
Right.
between the two sides, between the two different universes. Is there any good in the Terran universe, or is it completely snuffed out because it's useless to them? Point 2. Notes, that's it. That's all I got. I think I've been able to cover everything I wanted to cover, as usual.
Well, you know, it's getting very cold here, so if you could just beam down some hot coffee.
Yes, Mr. Sulu, I'll get it down as quick as I can.
Could you just lower a rope?
For those of you on our video side of the podcast, you can see my brother wrapped in a blanket. He has so graciously turned off the heat in his apartment so that we won't get any weird background sounds for the audio. That was so kind of you, Ken. We appreciate it. So I'll wrap this up so you can get all nice and warm. It'll be very nice. Hey, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for listening. If you're listening in the usual places, we are on SoundCloud. We are on iTunes. We are on the YouTubes now. We just did our awesome talk about The Last Jedi. So if you want to hear about some Star Wars, check for that. It should be live right now on YouTube. And hey, thanks for watching this one. Seeing what you look like, seeing how goofy I am with my flailing arms and all the fun. We'll be back next week with what's going to be another awesome but dark mirror episode of Star Trek Discovery. So as always, I am Matt saying goodbye, and now say goodbye from Houston, Ken.
Peace and long life.
That's right, and we will see you all next week.